are relatively deep and complex, and so that's probably the biggest. But that will be managed in the sense that the work that person carries out will develop over time, and that person will be let loose more and more on the core products. You would tend to start on the periphery. Like, for example, one thing that we need to do is this will mean something to some people who are listening, but not to all. We're actually, the product has been mistakenly developed on Rails 4.2. We need to move to Rails 6. That's actually a big job, or it's a dangerous job. So one of the roles I think we'll give would be to do an investigation of that and to develop a roadmap for doing that. So then when we come to doing it, then we will know A, B, C, D. This is what we need to do. So there'll be quite a few jobs to do on the edges of the platform, which will give an experience of it. I think that's the biggest challenge. Every job has its own challenges.
Yeah.
But I think that the other one, Helen, that to mention is a challenge, but on the flip side of it, the opportunity. All I'll say is working for a startup is very different to working for the big multinational, the multinationals who are headquartered here. Very, very different. But I bet you if you join any of the big ones, you're not going to get a line of code pushed to production for a long time. There won't be a customer-facing line of code that you write that will be seen by anybody for years. And I'd give it a week with us.
Okay, very good. Okay, so I know we've advertised your position through the NCI portal, and I know you've received a lot of applications already. So can you tell me what makes a CV stand out for you?
Well, I have a bit of a problem with all the resumes, Helen, that have come from your side, in that they're all consistently good, okay. which makes the job difficult. I can see that there's been a lot of effort put into writing the resume. So the good news is that like one thing is necessary. You have to feel that the person who has submitted the resume has actually put a bit of effort into it. Now that doesn't mean that it has to be long. I would be very comfortable with a single-page resume. Okay. I'm very comfortable with a 5-page resume. You know, and everybody knows that resume is the average time, and I'm no different, of a first read of a resume is something of the order of 5 to 10 seconds. Okay, you scan down through it and you see what jumps out at you. Okay, so it's that jumping out, and some people, different people will have different answers. In my case, what I'm interested in jumping out is what comes at me between the lines. And again, I've mentioned startup, right? So I'm interested in a focus on practical work. I'm interested in experience, particularly experience that is not necessarily driven out of coursework. So very fascinating to look at project work. I like something that somebody has done that doesn't relate to that, because it tells me something about them. So reading between the lines and trying to see if there's some sparkle, some character and some imagination that's behind that formal structure of the resume is important to me. But one thing I love to see is technology as part of a hobby, or outside of the university, or outside of a work context. I do spot all the technology references as well, so I do see Ruby on Rails that jumps out at me. But like I said, I'll try to be dispassionate about that and not to take that as a hiring criterion.
And would there be another language that you'd have a preference for if a student didn't have Ruby on Rails?
I think that all of the other kind of modern languages are just fine.
Right. Okay.
And you know, Ruby on Rails is a language that, you know, superficially is similar to other ones, but okay. There's a culture around it, and people do gain experience.
Right. Okay. Okay. Great. And so, just about the recruitment process, then you're getting the CVs, you're screening them for 5 or 7 seconds, and you're picking out your standout candidates. So, what happens next in the recruitment process? Can you hear me?
Yeah, you did break up there, but you've asking me about the recruitment process. So the recruitment process will be relatively informal. Yeah, so we'll relatively informal. So it starts with the resume. It'll involve a 5 or 10 minute phone call. That's all. As if it is possible, then after that we will have a face-to-face. And I prefer to get people to meet people outside of an office environment. So traditionally, I've met for lunch. I meet people for dinner. I meet people for a drink, and then we'll talk about primarily what drives them. I am interested in seeing code. I'm interested in seeing people step through something, and then there comes a certain point then when I will introduce the candidate to others in the company. But it's very often early on if somebody is a fit, and then after that you're trying to rule them out. You're trying to find a reason why actually something you didn't see, and but the gut feel is an important thing.
Okay, that's really good. So it's fairly straightforward recruitment process then. So Dale, are there any more questions?
There was one question on how the CRM part is taken care of. I don't know if that's relevant for this particular conversation. Oh, hello. And there's lots of people. My dog disagrees, but that's, I don't know if you can hear that. But is there anything to say about the CRM side of things?
Well, CRM to me means customer relationship management, and so if that is what is meant, then it's not relevant at all. If it means configuration management, then we're using the power of Git. So if whoever asked the question would clarify what CRM means in this context.
Okay, and now that you mentioned Git, are you interested in seeing people's GitHub accounts and their code, or is that a feature of your recruitment?
Yeah. It is. It has become a standard way of presenting something,
right.
And that makes it easy. That's not necessarily the only way. But if somebody's published, if they've published a web app, for example, that's also good. If somebody is something tangible, and GitHub is tangible.
Okay. And so while we're waiting from Dale to come back about that CRM question, if there are applicants for the software graduate role and they were interested in the internship, would that be an option for you, or are you looking for someone more junior for the internships?
No, not necessarily. I think that the internship would be could well suit somebody who's coming out of the college.
Okay, right.
Like I say, it's probably a mistake to think of it as a binary choice. We have a certain target for recruitment, and we'd like to meet that. Yes.
Okay, great.
I think the question, apologies, the CRM question I think was possibly misread. They're looking to know about the configuration management tool.
Configuration, yeah. Well, I mean, we're using Git as it's meant to be used, and then Bitbucket is our cloud repository, and so we use it in the classic way. And we've a light process on top of it, so we tend to well, all developers will work off branches that are taken from the latest release. We tag releases. Each release will have a release note associated with it, so that for every release you can relate that back to the issue numbers. So we track that quite tightly. The manner in which those branches are managed is up to the individual developer. You can do all your work in one branch, or you can split them up into separate branches per issue. There's advantages to both. Anything critical that happens, I tend to encourage a separate branch, because we may do a hot fix we're at the stage of the company where we hotfix quite frequently, and that's something that needs to be done with smaller code changes. So keeping single issues on branches is useful for that. But we go through a fairly frequent release cycle, typically weekly, and with hotfixes more often than weekly. We're reasonably strong on testing, but we're not 100%. So we don't have a full automated test suite developed yet. So that's another gap which could be filled by somebody who joins us. Lastly, we run two servers, production server, staging server. Everything gets pushed to the staging server, tested on the staging server before we release it to the production server. And then there's a development server, one per developer. So you can push your own code to the cloud and see what it looks like, served through Heroku, as it happens in this case. And but it's your own, so you can do what you want on that.
Okay, that sounds great. So are there any other questions, Dale? Or
yeah, sure. So there's a couple just here. One question is, like, in terms of duration, like what is the kind of timescales that you've got at the moment for how long, how much work have you got lined up, and how long do you envisage this post lasting? Is it permanent, or are you kind of got a certain amount of work involved in mind? What's the sort of durations you're talking about at the moment?
Well, what was the film From Here to Infinity? Toy Story. So it is From Here to Infinity. This is a growing company, and we're starting out, and our current roadmap, actually, believe it or not, we haven't, hand on heart, just released version 1.0 yet, because we're not happy that we are there. It is not the product that we want it to be just yet, despite the fact that it's well received by customers. And so the initial part is to get to version 1.0. Then we have a slight pivot, business pivot planned, which will see us integrating with I won't say what it is, but it's going to change the character of the business a little bit. It's going to make it more valuable. It's going to make it easier to raise more capital, and we don't have a technology roadmap beyond that, but you can be certain that this is a product that is going to continue to be developed at a very fast pace for 5 years. So there's a lot to do.
Good stuff. Good stuff. And the other question that we've got here from Daryl, what sort of GitHub portfolio projects would stand out for you? Like, what standards do you look for? Like, what stands out to you as being impressive or would catch your eye on a GitHub account?
What catches my eye is something that's come from the heart, something that's come from a bit of inspiration. So I'm as interested in seeing the quality of what's gone into it as the reasoning behind it. So if somebody has a hobby and if they've done something very interesting to them around that, I love to see that. If somebody had some stupid idea that they spent evenings coding up, I think that's fantastic, even if it never sees the light of day. Just to do things. You should see the stuff that I have. I haven't published it to GitHub, by the way. They're all private, but I've done things around hobbies and dropped them and then moved on to the next thing. And I've created a couple of companies. Some of them became companies, and so that's what I'm interested in seeing. I would like to be able to distinguish between original work and forked work. So so please don't pass off something else that you haven't developed as your own work. I wouldn't like to see that at all.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks very much.
Is that it, Dale, or how are we doing?
That's it so far at the moment.
Okay.
That's what we've got. I just wondered, I know from speaking to a lot of students that when we talk about people being self-starters, a lot of students will nod and say yes, they know what that means. And in reality, in the bigger picture of it, we kind of understand that, like, you know, you got to be getting on with things yourself and looking for things to do. But what does a good self-starter look like in your company? What sort of things would they be coming to you and saying, I'm just going to do this now, or this needs to get done? Like, is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
Yes and no. We don't want loose cannons. So we don't want somebody going off and deciding to take something on board and just going off and doing it. So they have to have a combination of initiative, but with the ability to follow the standards and processes and patterns that we have. Now, the great thing about a startup is that you can influence those. The other thing about a startup is that although there may be a lot of design patterns that have been built in, very often they're not well documented, if at all. And so we'd really be keen that whoever works with us will not try to reinvent, but will try and influence. Now, I might mention the day-to-day working. One way I like to work. So I'd imagine, for example, if somebody started with us, we probably won't be sitting side by side for a lot of the time. I'm a great believer in the short daily stand-up meeting. You don't have to stand. So I like a 15-minute daily meeting at which it's pretty fast. It's over. If it goes on longer than 15 minutes, there has to be a good reason for it, and during which it is agreed what the next day will bring. That's not to say then there can't be communication back. We work on Slack, incidentally. I'll give you an example of working with a very small team in Vietnam. That daily stand-up meeting was very interesting because they couldn't understand me and I couldn't understand them, but they were able to show the work that they had done. And then we were able to continue the conversation very, very successfully on Slack. So we had really good communication, even though verbally we couldn't understand each other. But we still had that stand-up meeting. It did last about 15 minutes, and it was very, very valuable.
Okay, that's a great insight into the nature of the work and how you work in the company, and the kind of person you're looking for obviously is a self-starter but not a loose cannon, someone who's willing to learn, and someone who has done projects outside their normal coursework and work. They're the things that stand out for you, I think.
Yeah. But then again, they're just what I like to see, but somebody else could jump out as well for reasons that I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So if there isn't any more questions, I think we're coming to the end. It's about 17:36.
Just one last question came in. Like, would you consider full stack developers? Is there an opportunity for the full stack side of things?
Could you clarify for me what you mean by full stack? Because to me, full stack may mean something different. It'd be helpful if I understood that.
Jill, would it be worth letting the person talk on that, or if they put their hand up and we'll unmute them?
So they're referring to web development, full stack web development. Do you need any kind of web developers for that side of things?
Well, I think unless I misunderstand it, we are full stack. So I'm probably not understanding the term in that context. And I'm going to hazard a guess that yes is the correct answer, because again, it's going to show a depth of understanding of technology then which can be applied when translated to our own environment. I'm sorry about the weak answer, but and it's my fault, but I don't fully understand the question.
No, that's fine. Thank you. Okay. I think that's it. The other one was related to DevOps. Anything for DevOps people there? But I think
and that DevOps interests us a lot. But we're too early in the sense that we are all DevOps, and so everybody is expected to do their bit. And we will grow into that in time. But with a very small team, you can manage DevOps on a very light basis.
Okay.
Perfect. That's everything. Thank you.
Okay, well, look, I'd really like to thank you, Diarmuid, for coming on this evening, and for LiveCosts for sending us in the job. I know there's a lot of interest in it, so hopefully after this people will have a clearer idea of what the role involves and how to prep up for the interview. So thank you very much for that, and thank you, Dale, for managing the chat. I couldn't see it until now, and thanks to all you guys for turning up. And I suppose just want to let you know that there is another webinar tomorrow evening with the careers team. Any career related questions you have, it would be really helpful to send them in advance, or just come along and join at 5 o'clock. So thank you very much, and thank you, Diarmuid.
Yeah, no, it's been my pleasure, and just my last words is that we're going to, and we already have a lot of resumes, right? So all I can promise is that we will acknowledge the resumes. We will let everybody who applies know where they are in the process, and obviously not everybody is going to get a job. We will close it with you as soon as we know that you're out of the list, right? The other thing is that from what I've seen so far, you know, to some extent, everybody is qualified. So it's a difficult job. Last thing, you're lucky because we initiated a conversation with a number of the universities, and we've not seen any attention from the staff, from the support teams in the universities, like we've seen from your own career support here. So they're doing a much better job than any of the other universities.
Oh, thank you. It's great bit of acknowledgement of our efforts.
And IT support's great too.
Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, so with that, I will end the meeting, and thank you to all again. And we look forward to hearing from you, Diarmuid.
Yeah, no, that's great.
Yeah.
I'm delighted. I'm delighted
Okay.
with that.
Okay, I'll give you a call offline. Okay.
Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thanks, Dale.
Okay. Thanks, Dale. I'll give you a call, Diarmuid, off when we've left the room, okay?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Thanks a million. Yeah.